During the Pacific War, one man shot down 64 enemy aircraft and became feared throughout the skies of the Pacific. During an aerial battle over Guadalcanal, his fighter was torn apart by enemy gunfire, leaving him critically wounded and nearly blind. Yet somehow, while drifting in and out of consciousness from massive blood loss, he managed to fly for 4 more hours and return alive to Rabaul airfield. But this same man was also known for something else. One day, he encountered an enemy transport plane carrying wounded soldiers, women, and children. Though ordered to destroy enemy aircraft, he chose mercy over duty and let them go. His name was Saburo Sakai. Saburo Sakai, later celebrated as one of Japan's greatest fighter aces of the Pacific War, was born on August 26, 1916, in Nishioka Village, Saga Prefecture. He was the second son among 6 children, raised by his father, Seiichi, who worked at a rice mill, and his mother, Hyde. But tragedy struck early. When Sakai's father died at the young age of 36, the family fell into severe poverty. Seeing the family's hardship, an uncle living in Tokyo invited Sakai to the capital to continue his education. He attempted to enter Tokyo Prefectural 6th Middle School, but failed the entrance exam, eventually enrolling in the middle school division of Aoyama Gakuen. However, struggling academically, he was forced to leave school and return to his hometown in disappointment. While helping with farm work back home, Sakai often watched the flying boats of the Sasebo Naval Air Group circling overhead. Deep inside him, a powerful desire began to grow. He wanted to fly. That dream would change the course of his life forever. After spotting a recruitment poster for the Imperial Japanese Navy's youth aviation program, Sakai applied twice and failed both times, but he refused to give up his dream. Ignoring opposition from those around him, he enlisted as a naval recruit in 1933. His determination soon paid off. In 1935, he graduated second in a class of 200 from the Yokosuka Naval Gunnery School. The following year, he was selected as a main gun operator aboard the battleship Haruna. Yet, his desire to become a pilot never faded. After many setbacks and struggles, Sakai finally passed the pilot trainee examination and entered Kasumigara Air Base in 1937. Later that year, after completing his first solo flights, he graduated at the top of the 38th pilot training class. At last, Saburo Sakai began his journey as a fighter pilot. In 1938, the Second Sino-Japanese War intensified, and on October 5th, Sakai experienced his first combat mission and first aerial victory. Then, in October 1940, while serving with the Yokosuka Air Group, Sakai encountered a revolutionary aircraft for the first time, the Mitsubishi A-6M0 fighter, known simply as the Zero. From that moment on, the skies of the Pacific became the stage for the legend of Saburo Sakai. His combat career would continue until 1944. Officially, Sakai was credited with 28 aerial victories. However, when later questioned by author Naoki Kudachi about the true number, Sakai himself gave an ambiguous answer. It may have been fewer than 64, or perhaps more. Sakai also addressed claims that he flew 200 combat missions. He admitted that the number was not literally accurate, but explained, "If you compare air combat to baseball, each dogfight is like stepping into the batter's box. One sortie could involve many battles. So yes, I probably fought around 200 engagements, and honestly, I think my kill rate was extremely high." There came a moment when death itself nearly claimed Saburo Sakai. On August 7, 1942, while returning from combat operations over Guadalcanal, Sakai spotted what he believed to be a formation of Grumman F-4F Wildcat fighters flying in a straight line, but he had made a fatal mistake. The aircraft were actually SBD Dauntless dive bombers. Approaching carelessly at close range, Sakai's Zero was suddenly met with devastating fire from the Dauntless rear gunner's twin machine guns. Bullets tore into the cockpit. Sakai suffered a severe head wound to the right side of his forehead. The entire left side of his body became partially paralyzed. His right eye was badly damaged, leaving him barely able to see either the horizon or his instruments. Yet even in that hopeless condition, Sakai refused to die. Fading in and out of consciousness from blood loss, he continued flying for 4 agonizing hours. Against all odds, he reached Rabaul. Landing, however, presented another challenge. Unable to perform normal landing procedures, Sakai controlled only his descent angle and airspeed. Then, when the aircraft dropped to the height of the palm trees lining the runway, he shut off the engine with his foot and glided the damaged fighter onto the airstrip. Had he circled even once more, he would have run out of fuel and crashed. It was truly a miracle survival. Behind Sakai's incredible return lay the harsh reality of the Guadalcanal campaign, one of the great turning points of the Pacific War. In 1942, Japan began constructing an airfield on Guadalcanal Island, a strategic point in the South Pacific. If completed, the base would allow Japan to monitor and disrupt Allied supply routes between the United States and Australia. But the United States reacted quickly. That same month, Allied forces landed on Guadalcanal and seized the unfinished airfield, later known as Henderson Field. Japan launched repeated counterattacks to retake the island, but the struggle became increasingly desperate. Although the Zero fighter possessed exceptional range, the distance from Rabaul to Guadalcanal was between 800 and 1,000 kilometers one way. This meant Japanese pilots often had less than 10 minutes of combat time over the battlefield before needing to return. Running out of fuel was a constant danger. Meanwhile, Allied forces introduced new medical technologies such as penicillin, dramatically reducing deaths from disease. Japanese troops, on the other hand, suffered terribly from malaria and malnutrition. Many soldiers died before even reaching combat. By early 1943, Japan finally decided to withdraw from Guadalcanal. The tide of the Pacific War had begun to turn, and it was amid this brutal campaign that Saburo Sakai achieved his miraculous return. There is another story about Saburo Sakai, one that reveals not only the warrior, but also the humanity within him. In February 1942, before the Guadalcanal campaign began, Sakai was flying over the Dutch East Indies during the invasion of Java. There, he unexpectedly spotted a large Dutch DC-4 transport aircraft attempting to escape Japanese forces. Although it was a transport plane, enemy officers might have been aboard. His orders were clear: capture or destroy the aircraft. Sakai approached cautiously. "It doesn't seem to have any escort fighters," he muttered while scanning the skies. Unsure whether to fire a warning shot or attack outright, he moved closer. Approaching from the direction of the sun, he could see the transport plane gleaming brightly in the sunlight. Then he noticed something unexpected. Faces. Many faces staring back at him through the windows. Sakai brought his Zero even closer. As sunlight poured into the cabin, he could finally see inside. The passengers were not soldiers preparing for battle. Most were wounded. Others were elderly civilians, women, and children. Their terrified expressions were frozen in fear. Among them, Sakai saw what appeared to be a nurse holding a little girl of about 5 years old. The child clung tightly to the woman, staring at the approaching Zero in terror. At that moment, Sakai asked himself, "You are a fighter pilot of the Imperial Japanese Navy, but a plane carrying wounded people, women, and children is not the enemy. You saw no enemy aircraft here." Sakai made his decision. Instead of firing, he raised his hand slightly and signaled for the pilot to go. Then, he banked his Zero away and disappeared into the distance. It was an act that violated military regulations. After returning to base, Sakai simply reported, "I lost sight of the enemy aircraft in the clouds," and he told no one the truth. The truth behind that encounter would not emerge until 50 years after the war. A former Dutch nurse who had been aboard the transport aircraft happened to read one of Sakai's books. When she saw the emblem of the Zero fighter described within its pages, she became convinced. This was the pilot who spared us. Through the International Red Cross, she requested an investigation. Soon afterward, the identity of the pilot was confirmed. It had indeed been Saburo Sakai. At last, the two met again. The woman told him, "Most of the people aboard that aircraft were sick, elderly, women, and children. When you waved and flew away, everyone on board embraced one another in relief and gratitude. Today, many of those people went on to build families of their own, surrounded by children and grandchildren. You were the one who saved their lives." As she recalled the scene from 50 years earlier, tears filled her eyes as she took Sakai's hand. Saburo Sakai was a warrior who fought fearlessly in the face of death. Yet even amid the brutality of war, he never lost sight of the value of human life. Perhaps that is why many still remember him not merely as a fighter ace, but as a true samurai of the Showa era. Thank you very much for watching until the end. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like, and we'll see you again in the next video.